ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر.
I seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan, the rejected one. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. I greet you with the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are continuing with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. In the last segment, we saw that the fathers convinced the brothers. We saw in the last segment, the brothers convinced Yakoob alayhi salam to send the youngest brother Benjamin with them to Egypt because it was the request of the Minister of Finance, which was Yusuf alayhi salam, which they did not know at that point in time. So they convinced their father to send Benjamin with them so that he can so that they can get more wheat when they went to Egypt. So we're continuing with section 9 today, verse 69. We'll read A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. Now when they came into Yusuf's presence, he received his full brother to stay with him. He said to him, Behold, I am thy own brother, so grieve not at aught of their doings. So Yusuf alayhi salam embraced his brother, his true brother, and told him, don't worry, don't stress. He revealed his identity and says, don't worry about what they're doing, he's got a plan. At length, when he had furnished them forth with provisions suitable for them, he put the drinking cup into his brother's saddlebag. Then shouted out the crier, O you in the caravan, behold, you are thieves without doubt. They said, turning towards them, what is it that you must? So before they left, after getting the stock, the stock that they needed to take back, their food, Yusuf alayhi salam put the drinking cup into his brother's bag. And then a crier called out to say, we're missing, you are thieves. So they said, what is it that you must? They said, we must the great beaker of the king. So the beaker of the king was missing. For him who produces it is the reward of a camel load. I will be bound by it. So the promise was that whoever finds the beaker of the king will get an extra camel load of wheat. So it was like it was a great bounty to get. So they went out looking for who was the thief who stole this cup of the king. The brother said, by Allah, well you know that we came not to make mischief in the land, and we are no thieves. They said, but we are not thieves, you know we are not troublemakers. The Egyptian said, what then shall be the penalty of this if you are proved to have lied? If you are proved to have lied. So they discussed and said, what is the penalty of somebody if he's proved that he was a thief? They said, the penalty should be that he in whose saddlebag it is found shall be held as bondman to atone for his crime. Thus it is we punish the wrongdoers. So they said the person who is the thief should be held prisoner. So he began to search for their baggage. Before he came to the baggage of his brother, at length he brought it out of his brother's bag. Thus did we plan for Yusuf. He could not take his brother by the law of the king, except that Allah willed it so. We raise to degrees of wisdom whom we please, but over all endued with knowledge is one, the all-knowing. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. So we see here that he began to search in their baggage. And while searching for the baggage, Yusuf alayhi salam brought out the beaker of the king. And because of this now, and they agreed that the thief must be held prisoner, he could hold his brother back in Egypt. That would be part of the plan that he had in mind in the first place. But the verse concludes very nicely and says, over everyone that has knowledge is one who is more knowledgeable. So everyone who has knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more knowledgeable. And as a result, Yusuf alayhi salam could now keep his brother back because it was the law that was prescribed for theft in this case. Now we see the brothers said in the next verse. They said in verse 77, if he steals, there was a brother of his who did steal before him, but these things did Yusuf keep locked in his heart, revealing not the secrets to them. So some of the brothers still had that same mentality that they had in the past. They said, if this brother is a crook, he had another brother before him that was also a crook. But Yusuf alayhi salam didn't just jump to defend himself or fight with them in this case. He kept it quiet because he had a plan that he was executing very quietly without them knowing. He simply said to himself, you are the worst situated, and Allah knows best the truth that you assert. So that's the answer he gave him. He says, you are in the trouble now, only Allah knows what you say, whether it's true or not. They said, O exalted one, behold, he has a father, aged and venerable, who will grieve for him. So take one of us in his place, for we see that you are gracious in doing good. But we see that by them saying this now, we see that there was a change in the mentality of the group, the sons of Yakoob. We see that they had regret. They learned something from the past of Yusuf alayhi salam. They said, O exalted one, O Yusuf. They didn't know it was him. His father is old. Take one of us in his place. We will rather be prisoner rather than him, because his father is old and sick. He said, God forbid, Yusuf alayhi salam said, God forbid that we take other than him with whom we found our property. Indeed, if we did so, we should be acting wrongfully. So Yusuf alayhi salam told them, we can't exchange one for the other. We will be going against the law. So unfortunately, they will have to detain Benjamin, who was guilty of the crime of theft on face value. Right, and we'll read further in section 10 now. Verse 80. Now when they saw no hope of his yielding, they held a conference in private. The leader among them said, know you not that your father did take an oath from you in Allah's name, and how before this you did fail in your duty with Yusuf? Therefore will I not leave this land until my father permits me, or Allah commands me, and he is the best to command. So we see here that the brother, possibly the eldest brother, some say, decided to stay behind in Egypt, and he told the rest of the brothers to go explain the situation to their father. He said, turn you back to your father and say, O our father, behold, thy son committed theft. We bear witness only to what we know, and we could not well guard against the unseen. Ask at the town where we have been and the caravan in which we returned, and you will find we are indeed telling the truth. So he gave them advice and said, go tell our father, our brother committed theft. We were stuck. We were powerless. What could we do? We had to he was detained, so we were held powerless. So he had to be detained in Egypt, and we could do nothing about it. Now, when Yakoob alayhi salam heard about this, Yakoob alayhi salam said, nay, but you have yourselves contrived a story good enough for you. So patience is most fitting for me. For sabrun jamil. So we see sabrun jamil again comes out here. So he said, you have again made up another story. So for me, sabrun jamil, beautiful patience. Maybe Allah will bring them back all to me in the end, for He is indeed full of knowledge and wisdom. We read verse 84, and he turned away from them and said, how great is my grief of Yusuf. And his eyes became white with sorrow, and he fell into silent melancholy. So we see here that Yusuf alayhi salam, we see here that Yakoob alayhi salam turned away from them after this news that he received about Benjamin being detained. And he said, how great is my grief for Yusuf, and his eyes became white. Now his eyes becoming white is traditionally explained as being that he became blind. But another explanation says that eyes becoming white would mean that he cried a lot for Yusuf alayhi salam because he missed him so much. Then, verse 85, they said, by Allah, never will thou cease to remember Yusuf until thou reaches the last extremity of illness, or until thou die. So they told Yakoob alayhi salam, his children told him, you'll never cease to forget Yusuf alayhi salam. So he explained to say, in verse 86, he said, I only complain of my distraction and anguish to Allah. I know from Allah that which you know not. So he says, I do not complain, and I'm not complaining about the plan of Allah that has folded in my life. I complain about me missing my son to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he showed his sadness that he was missing his son, but he did not show the despondency. He did not show that he did not basically have, he was not basically upset with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what has happened. He had sabr, as we saw, sabrun jamil. He just mentioned it a few verses earlier. And we see that he has full faith in the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as happened when giving advice on how to enter the town. So he is not angry with Allah. However, he is missing his son. That's all it is. So there's nothing wrong with having grief or sorrow, as long as you have faith and accept the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your life. Further, he goes on in verse 87, he says, "O my sons, go you and inquire about Yusuf and his brother, and never give up hope of Allah's soothing mercy. Truly no one despairs of Allah's soothing mercy except those who have no faith." So you cannot despair of Allah's mercy. That is an important point that we learn from verse 87. Then we read in verse 88. "Then when they came back to into Yusuf's presence, they said, 'O exalted one, the stress has seized us and our family. We have now brought but scanty capital.'" So the money and resources were used up. They didn't have much resources to buy grain for themselves. "So pay us full measure, we pray thee, and treat it as charity to us. For Allah does reward the charitable." So they were totally down and out, and they came to appeal to the goodness of Yusuf AS. And now we see that Yusuf AS, when they're down and out, finally discloses who he really is. He said, "Know you how you dealt with Yusuf and his brother, not knowing what you were doing?" They said, "Art thou indeed Yusuf?" He said, "I am Yusuf, and this is my brother. Allah has indeed been gracious to us all. Behold, he that is righteous and patient, never will Allah suffer the reward to be lost of those who do right." So here we see that Yusuf alayhi salam declares who he is, and he says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought them all together. Allah has been gracious to them. And this is an important theme in the surah, this part that says, "He that is righteous and patient. Innahu may yattaqi wa yasbir." So those who have taqwa and those who have sabr, never will Allah suffer the reward to be lost of those who do right. And we see that this is exactly what happens throughout the surah, that if you have sabr and you have taqwa and do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, He always makes things work out in the end. And this is one of the important themes and lessons that we can learn from the surah. Have taqwa and have sabr, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make things work out for you in the end. Verse 91, they said, "By Allah, indeed, has Allah preferred thee above us, and we certainly have been guilty of sin." They said, "Allah has preferred thee above us. Look, you are a king now, and we are suffering here." He said, "This day let no reproach be cast on you. Allah will forgive you, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy." So we see that Yusuf alayhi salam didn't gloat, and he didn't he didn't embarrass his brothers. He didn't say, "Yeah, you remember what you did to me when I was young. You all were the culprits. You all did this, you all did that." We see because of his righteous character, he just said, "This day let no reproach be cast on me. Allah will forgive you, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy." He said, "Allah will forgive you, and He is the most merciful of those who show mercy." So he didn't remind them of their wrong. Basically, he just forgave them, and he said, basically, Allah, Shaitan has shown the discord between them, as it will be shown in another ayah further in the section. So this is a beautiful way in which he approached his brothers. He didn't remind them of their wrong. He just said, "Allah will forgive you." And we see that the Prophet ﷺ also followed the example of Yusuf alayhi salam. When he conquered Makkah and he walked in as the king of Arabia, Then he told the people, he said, I will say unto you as Yusuf said to his brothers, that Allah will forgive you. Let there be no reproach on you this day. So it just shows that we must also try and learn from this, that we shouldn't keep grudges and hold things against people. Rather forgive and overlook. Do we not want Allah to forgive us? And may Allah make it easy for us to forgive others and not hold grudges against those who did us wrong. Then further, Yusuf a.s. Says to his brothers, go with this shirt of mine, go with this my shirt, and cast it over the face of my father. He will come to see clearly. Then come you here to me together with all your family. So he gave his shirt so that they could cast it over the father's face. And then he says, your father will come to see clearly. So according to some, they said that his blindness was cured, but according to others, by him seeing the shirt, it will be evidence that now that Yusuf a.s. is alive, and basically the fruition of his dream is being played out and it's coming towards an end. So he told his brothers to go back to Egypt and cast the shirt over his father's face so that he can come to see clearly. So with that, we will stop today's section 9 and 10. In our sections today, we see that Yusuf a.s. received his full brother and told him who he was, but he told him to keep it secret. And then he put the king's cup into his brother's bag, and when they searched through the baggage, they found that the cup was found in the brother's bag, and they all agreed that whoever was a thief should be detained, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to be detained as a result of that. And then one of the brothers said that he will remain behind, and they must go explain the situation to the father. And when they went to the father said, Sabrun Jamil. And then we saw that Yakoob AS' eyes became white, some say with sorrow, some say that he became blind. But most importantly, we see that he said he complains of his grief to Allah. Then we see that they went back to Egypt and they asked for charity because they hardly had any capital. And then we see that Yusuf a.s. Revealed who he really was. And then they said that basically the verse that comes out here is that behold, he that is righteous and patient, never will Allah suffer the reward to be lost of those who do right. So we highlighted the importance that if you are of those who have taqwa and those who have sabr, Allah will never suffer the reward to be lost of those who do right. So this seems to be one of the main themes of the surah, Surah Yusuf. And then we see that Yusuf a.s. gives a shirt to his brothers to say, cast this over the face of the father, and then he'll come to see clearly. Some say he gained his sight. Others say that he will see clearly that this is the culmination of the dream of Yusuf a.s., which is coming into fruition. And with that, we will end today's section. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر